I'm Ogden City Mayor Ben Nadolski, and welcome to the Ogden Way Podcast, the place where we tell Ogden stories by telling the stories of Ogden's people. And today, we have somebody that's visiting Ogden, coming here to Ogden to tell us more about how you can harness your wealth. Today, we have Billy Peterson. Billy, welcome.
Hey, thank you for having me on here, Ben. Appreciate it.
No, actually, I'm glad to have you here because you invited me to be on your podcast some time ago.
That's right. We reached out to you. My office did. And then actually I saw your name and I thought, you know what? I know him. And even though I didn't kind of connect the dots, I remembered that we served on a board together, years ago.
That's right. So, the Wildcat Club.
It was a Wildcat Club.
Right? Yeah, it's been a number of years. And I actually really enjoyed my time on your podcast because that was like the first time that anybody ever actually asked about me. Like, I don't know. You were just probing about like, what's it like and who are you as a man? How are you raised, et cetera? And I was like, hey, man, what are you trying to do? Put me on the couch here? Like, probe me for all my problems and my flaws?
Psychology, I like to learn about people, what makes them tick. Because I think we can learn more by understanding the person than just what you have to do for a living.
Right.
What makes you who you are.
Yeah. And I think you got to the bottom of what makes me tick.
Yeah.
Might have been a little alarming for what you found. But
no, it was good. I thought that was a really, really good show.
It was. Well, let's have another good show. How's that? Sound good?
Yeah.
So you are a financial planner. You have a background in economics and finances. You help people harness their wealth. Right?
That's right.
Tell us more about that.
It's a little bit of a play on words from my background as a farm boy. I grew up on a ranch and just in Morgan County here and close by. And so just one of those themes that developed as I was becoming a financial advisor and getting into this world. I like to use terms that people can relate to, and it shows that you understand the true value of hard work and dedication to something bigger than yourself. So I use that term, and kind of all of my marketing for my business has that kind of a theme to it. So we call it the Code of the West, where we explain to people really our values as people, and we're looking for servicing the client to do what we say we're going to do, go above and beyond. Our word is our badge. We have to carry that, and the referrals that I get are critical to running a business and building my business. I started out with 0 clients. I didn't have any clients, and I started in this business obviously in 1996 after my career as a jockey. And so when I say I had no clients, well, people would say, well, duh, you just started your business. But a lot of advisors get in this and they buy a book or they buy a business and buy into it or take over a business from somebody who already started it. Well, I had none of that. I had to build it client by client by client. Mm-hmm. And so it took a lot of hard work. And one of the hardest things was explaining to people how I could be a jockey and still have enough intelligence to help them manage their money. Because most people think jockeys are some of the looniest people.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah.
As compared to defensive linemen?
They call them pinheads for a reason.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, small brain.
Okay.
But I don't know. I was able to transition. I had my degree before I quit riding. It was something I always really wanted to have and make sure I had that to fall back on. Mm-hmm. So when the time came and the moment was there and I knew it, I just knew it in my heart it was time to move on. I had that background and I was able to transition into the career as a financial advisor without a whole lot of difficulty. The difficult part again was just convincing people. It was a grind.
It was a grind, right? And for those that haven't yet deduced from growing up in Morgan County, right, being a farm boy, the boots and the buckle. Mm-hmm. We're not talking about a disc jockey here. We're talking about a horse jockey.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You're a horse. You've got a whole lifetime of racing horses.
Right.
I didn't know that was the MO of a horse jockey, was that you guys were pinheads. But I do know that's the MO of defensive linemen. But
yeah, now you know. You know.
I wasn't built to race horses, but
no, you weren't. I mean, I wasn't even truly. I mean, I got to a point where I was struggling with my weight. You need to maintain, especially if you're going to ride the thoroughbreds, maintain a weight to where you can tack about 115. When I say tack, that means with your saddle, boots.
Wow. Are you serious?
Yes, girths. So
Jeez.
I was tacking 116. That was my set weight. That means I had to get on the scale every day, multiple times a day. And with nothing on, I have weigh 112. So it's about 4 pounds worth of equipment. So 112, and I actually got to where I was anorexic. I was so focused on the weight and losing weight so I could ride more and more horses that were assigned less and less weights. I was so terrified of being announced overweight. It was like a phobia. It was a weird fear for me. I don't know why, but I got to a point where I was really, really sick. Not eating. I didn't do the bulimia thing, but I would say more than 50% of riders use that to keep their weight down. You know, they call it flipping, where they eat something and they just purge. They actually have special bowls in the bathrooms that are not, they're like toilets, but they're just a bowl so guys can go in there and throw up. So and those toilets, their toilets are hammered.
Just this known part of a
bad
culture.
No, it's the dark part.
Super unhealthy.
It's such an unknown factor for jockeys to continue to make that weight, because it's not like a wrestler where you can weigh in and then go hydrate or replenish your calories and then compete, because you weigh in as you're going to get on the horse and you weigh out. So
you go in totally gassed. You are exhausted.
Oh, I was
getting rid of calories, getting rid of fluids, everything, just to get as light as you can.
Light as you can. I don't know how many times I just trying to pull the horse up after the race and I was just seeing stars flying around and, just
oh my gosh.
So weak. And you know how dangerous that is when you're on a 1,200-pound horse going 45 miles an hour and you can't really see what's going on.
Having been in that position many, many times, I do know, Billy.
Yeah. Let me just tell you, it's not a good feeling.
I actually feel like I had the exact opposite upbringing. As a lineman playing at Weber State, I was raised and taught to eat, gain, build, right?
Yeah.
And I remember when I was done playing football, so now I'm like, early 20s, and you're no longer lifting hard. We lifted really, really hard, ran hard, trained hard, right? Ate hard.
So you're burning calories big time.
And we were really built and developed and strong and fast, but once all that ended, the eating didn't. And so we all go through a period where we continue to eat, but we don't train the way we were. And that's a hard struggle. A lot of my teammates really had a hard time transitioning to normalcy, right?
Oh, I get it.
Yeah.
When I quit riding, within 3 weeks, I put on 20 pounds. And
way.
I mean, that doesn't sound like a lot, but that's a lot.
That's a ton.
For a guy weighing 112 and you jump to 132 in 3 weeks, I mean, people couldn't even recognize me, because your face, your cheeks are all bulging out like a chipmunk and you're packing weight where you normally wouldn't. And I was like, man, even my family were like, oh, here's Billy. He's really healthy looking. Other people weren't so kind, but anyway, I had to figure out a plan to.
Those are drastic changes.
Yeah.
I remember I was 265 playing football. Then, like right now, I'm like 215. And then I did 3 Ironmans and I was 185.
Wow.
And the people that I hadn't seen for a while, they're like, are you sick? They thought I was sick. I'm kind of evening out now.
You got to figure it out.
Yeah. So that sounds like a lot of, that's a grind. And you talked about the grind in building your business. You went through the grind for good and for bad, it sounds like,
right?
As a jockey. What did that teach you in terms of building your business and who you are as a man?
It taught me the importance of sacrifice. It taught me that if you want something out of this world and out of life, you have to go get it. And so I always set my sights on what I wanted to become. And when I started out as a jockey, it was ingrained in me even years before. So there was something that clicked in me and said, I want to be one of those guys. Because my dad and my uncles had horses. I was always around horses. I grew up on horses, but I wanted to ride them fast. And I loved watching those jockeys, so I just studied them. I just remember watching every move they made, and I just idolized the riders, even the ones that I didn't realize at the time were not very good. But I wanted that. I watched every movie I could watch. I stayed in that mentally and visually. There's races that I wanted to ride in. I wanted to be involved in those races. And one in particular is called the All-American Futurity, which is in Ruidoso, New Mexico, every Labor Day. And every person that's in the quarter horse racing industry, that's the race they want to win. That's the Super Bowl. That's the major leagues. That's where you want to be. And I watched that race over and over again every year, watched all the winners. And when I finally made my way to Ruidoso, that was the first year I was able, and I qualified one to ride in that race. So it was like a dream come true. But back to your point is the perseverance. Things don't come easy. In that first year, I thought I'd made it. I've hit the big time. I'm in the race I dreamed about being. It's a $3 million race. And my horse, nearing the finish line, unfortunately, tragically, broke his leg in half. Snapped the knee, went down end over end, and I'm on him, and we're running as hard as we can run. And fortunately, by the grace of God, I walked away from that tragedy, but the horse didn't. The horse had to be euthanized on the track. Now imagine this is me as a 21-year-old kid, I say, because that was what I felt like then, laying in the dirt on the racetrack that I had visualized being in riding in this race for my whole life. And that was the experience that I ended up with. And I had to decide right then and there, is this it? Am I done? Because that tragedy, that struck some fear in me. Like, I don't know if I want to get back on horses anymore. I almost died in this thing. And I've seen riders die in accidents like that, where they go down so hard, they snap their neck, snap their spine. It's over. They're either permanently paralyzed or they die right there on the track. There's the only sport in the world where an ambulance follows you while you're competing. An ambulance follows the horses around the track.
They don't show that on TV, do they?
You know that now. Another small little trivia point.
Well, yeah, exactly.
But the very next year, and I decided I'm not going to give up on my dream. 1 year later, I found myself back in the race.
Same race,
and I won.
Did you?
And that changed my whole life. From that point going forward, doors opened that I never dreamed possible. New people came into my life, offering me this opportunity, that. The horses that I was able to ride after that was unreal.
So it starts with sacrifice, maybe a little bit of courage, some failure along the way.
Courage, right. Perseverance, never giving up. There's so many stories about people who had to fail so many times before that success came to them. Success, I don't think, comes easy. And I think it's well worth the effort if you're willing to get back up and literally get on the horse again.
Yeah. That's what makes success feel so good. I have this talk with my daughter. I got one daughter in particular. She loves to have these talks. Well, I don't know if the other of them actually love it probably, but they're like, Dad, you always turn everything into a lecture about mental toughness. That's what they say. But it's fun to see them achieve, to see them actually achieve their goals, and for that, even when they're really small things, like, okay, we got to get with the basics of keep your room clean, right? Make your bed in the morning, and to see them actually doing it before they get up and lift weights for every morning, to prepare for their goals for their sports before they go to school. It's fun watching even just the little things, because the little things add up to the big things. Nothing ever happens by itself. It happens over time. It's all about that grind and that consistency of your habits and your, right?
Yep.
Always have that mindset toward being better and growing into a better version of you the next day. Even when you don't, you come back and try again, right?
You're hitting on the point that I believe is really important, is that the parents allow their kids or force their kids to learn how to take responsibility and to fail. And the parents are okay seeing their kids fail and seeing how they're going to handle that. It's the parents that always want to run to their rescue or do it for them. Those kids never learn how to achieve.
Right. How to achieve. I mean, because right now when they're young, that's when the consequences are actually safe. Mm-hmm. Right? They're learning consequences of, 8th grade math right now. The consequences of that are much less than, grown ass.
But you learn it.
Professional
you instill that.
Accountability, right?
Right.
But that's the beginning and the building of the human spirit. It's the grind, and that's the thing that I love about Ogden is that we have grit here. It is a grind. It can be a grind. I talked to a new small business owner. He's opening a bagel shop here in the Junction. And he said, I've lived all over the world. He's got a military background, and he's a mechanic. And he said, when I come home to Ogden, I feel more home than anywhere I've ever been. This is where I chose to start a business because this is where I feel home. I feel like I'm surrounded by people that have grit and character. They haven't had it easy, and they've found their way to where they are, and it's built people that I like to be around, right? I go, man, I haven't met you in person, but just talking to you on the phone, I feel like I'm talking to someone that's been in Ogden their whole life.
Yeah.
And I haven't been in Ogden my whole life either, but we find each other here in this town because that's what we are attracted to. Those kinds of people, real people with like real life experiences, right?
It's amazing. Yeah. How you find people with the same energy fields. It's amazing to me how that works. They like attract to one another.
Right?
You know?
I know. But I think there's an energy about us. I just read this or listened to a lecture that she said that negative energy is twice as infectious as positive energy. And boy, do we often fall for negative energy, and it's hardwired into us somehow, into human nature. When people put toxic energy into the world, we are twice as likely to be infected by it.
And I think there are so many ramifications from the negative energy. Most people brush that off as, oh yeah, it's just something weird that I don't understand. But I think there are huge physical consequences of negative energy. Energy is real, just like gravity. We don't see it, but it's there. It's very much there. Yeah. And that energy can affect us if we keep that energy building and growing and thinking negative thoughts all the time, too often. Well, something's going to break, and it usually breaks in our physical body where you have an illness or disease or you get sick. Yeah. You know, some people get sick so often. And you go, well, they just got a bad immune system. I've got a bad genetic history. Well, that's not it.
You got bad energy. It's powering that
it's
immune
your
system.
Thinking. Yeah.
Right.
And it's your energy that. So if you have a positive person, you can have a positive person, and I'm not advocating for this, but a positive person can smoke 3 packs of cigarettes a day and never have a problem. I mean, I've seen documentaries on this. Yeah. And again, I'm not advocating, but I'm just saying that negative health outcomes are more associated with your thinking.
Negative health outcomes are associated with negative mindset.
Yes.
Right. I always talk about how everything starts with mindset. How are you going to have a good disposition if you don't have a good mindset? Mm-hmm. But mindset's also connected to your heart and to your soul, to your spirit, to your your physical and your spiritual and your emotional and your mental health. It's all combined somehow, right? I'm sure the doctors know more about that than I do. I just feel that when I feel that alignment, it comes out of me in a better way. And I come to work in a better place, and I feel that I think people around me feel better too. And I like to put myself around people that do that same thing for me so that we're in a good place together while we're going to work, you know?
Oh, yeah. That's the key. I mean, it really does boil down to how you radiate and perform your job. And if you have a good attitude about it, others somehow. Right. It's like looking in a mirror, you know?
But how much energy does it take to overcome it when you're constantly surrounded by it?
No, that's the hard part.
That's the hardest thing.
Yeah.
That takes a ton of energy, and you have to show up in a great place.
Find a way.
You got to be strong in ways that I'm not accustomed to, that we've had to build ourselves into, right?
Yeah.
But that's again, it gets back to the grit and the grind. And so are you saying that these are the fundamental pieces of who we are, and that's how you build yourself to build your wealth?
I think it starts with the belief. You know, if you want to do anything, I think first of all you have to decide I can.
Yeah.
And not I hope, or maybe, or if I get lucky. It's got to be I believe.
Yeah, we'll see. No, it doesn't work.
I mean, I teach people, and I teach up here at Weber State. Every year I put on what's called a financial literacy boot camp. And I might have mentioned this, but we'll have between 450 and 600 high school students who are bussed up to our classes up there. And we put it on there at the Union Building, and all sorts of different classes about financial literacy. And we teach them the concepts about making the decisions early in life that'll change everything. And too often, I think they just fall into that trap of, I'll do what mom and dad did, which sadly, is often nothing. We didn't start doing anything. We are living by the seat of our pants. We're hoping we get through the end of the month with the money that we brought in. And they never sacrifice enough to put it away so they can see it grow. And then when they are up to 60 or 65 or close to retirement age, the worries are no longer there. They're financially independent. Mm-hmm. They are not forced to live on the handout. You see what I mean? Of like government assistance or other things that when you have too many people pulling off of the resource, it's a limited supply.
Oh, yeah.
So how about we all learn how to add in collectively to the resource instead of pulling away from it? And that's what I try to teach them.
So it's like you have to sacrifice early so that you can have freedom later, right?
Yeah.
And
it's in life, right? Too.
Right. And you might feel like you have freedom now to spend your money and to have now. But eventually, if you're not preparing and saving for the future, you won't have that freedom when you need it and when you don't have the ability to earn it, right?
Right.
Those are, I don't know, it just keeps coming back, sacrifice now so you don't have to sacrifice later, right?
Yeah.
So what are some of the key steps that we can take away from, like, let's pretend we're a community of people that are really, the world right now is challenged by the rising cost of living everywhere they turn.
Yep.
Right. We have a lot of families that are struggling to make ends meet. They're earning as much as they always have, or a little bit more each year, hopefully, but the costs are continually piling up on them. Right. And they just don't have that extra cream. They don't have that extra income that's above their expenses for quality of life.
Yeah.
So how does somebody like that start to save and start to prepare for their future when they're so in so much struggle in the now?
That is a question that I think needs some serious thinking, and people to just sit down, especially if it's a couple, young couple, or even an individual who's just contemplating their future. Like, I can't make ends meet. My job hasn't kept up with inflation, buying groceries, paying for my gas, whatever it is I'm doing. But I challenge people to sit down and try it anyway. Sit down and write your budget out. Write out what your income is, and then write out line by line what your expenses are. And I'll promise you, if you do that and exercise, you will surprise yourself, because most people don't realize where all their money's going.
Yep.
And they're on certain expenses, like just as simple as driving to the convenience store. Oh, I better pop in here. I need this. So you end up with $20 before you get out of there. Mm-hmm. And how often do we do that? Multiple times a week sometimes. We have to have our sodas, we have to have our Starbucks, guilty as charged. But if you're struggling to make ends meet, okay, and I'm going to go back all the way to when I was 14. I started investing because a farmer told me what to do when I was making good money for my age at the time, galloping and riding racehorses. I was just starting out. I wasn't wealthy. My family is poor. My dad was very poor, struggling to make it every year just to get through the year with a crop. And it was an eye-opening moment for me when he told me, look, this money you're making every week, every month, what are you doing with that?
Yeah.
So I'm putting it in the bank. I'm really proud of myself. He said,
make it.
That's okay, but that's not good. That's not really smart.
Not good enough.
What do you mean? I thought I was doing good. Here's what I mean. You're going to invest that. You're not going to save it in the bank. The bank's going to take most of that. They're not giving you anything. Invest it. Buy good businesses. I didn't know what that meant at the time, but the more I started studying, the more he explained to me, I started to learn how I could invest. I could invest in mutual funds and allow the mutual fund management company to take care of that decision-making for me. I didn't have to think about anything. The mutual fund's going to buy the companies. I'm going to invest. I'm going to watch it grow. And now that I'm in my career and I'm 30 years in almost, I know how to handle that stuff now myself. So I help my clients choose the right companies to invest.
Instead of paying the mutual fund fee.
Instead of doing the fee on that, I help them build their portfolio and write businesses that I think are going to grow, so cut down the cost. But the bottom line is you have to start. So look at your budget, see what you have. I always say invest first and then find your expenses, because if you don't invest for your future, you're going to struggle your entire life. So people say, I can't afford it. I say you can't afford not to do that. You have to flip that in your mind and make that your highest priority. It can't be behind buying the new shoes. Or when I was a kid, that was my priority. I wanted to make sure I got that money in my investment every month. Okay, so that happened automatically. And when you turn on an automatic switch, it's coming out of your bank account. I'm not stopping that.
Out of sight, out of mind.
Out of sight, out of mind.
You got it set.
If I don't have any left to buy whatever fun thing I wanted to do, go to the concert, or I'm sorry, I just don't have it this month.
Right.
So make me work harder to do the fun stuff.
Set it and forget it, but don't forget it. Just, right?
Yeah.
But forget that it's a part of your income so that you can live off what you have left.
Yeah.
Right? I find that, I'm really lucky. My wife and I we're dual income. She's the senior associate commissioner of the Big Sky Conference Athletics. Hope I got that right, babe. I did. I know I did.
Mm-hmm.
But, I'm the mayor, and we don't make a ton of money, but we do well enough, and we're lucky, right?
Yeah.
We're fortunate. But I find there's seasonality to our spending and our habits. Has a lot to do with what the kids' activities are in school, no school, different sports, summer vacation, etc. So there's some seasonality. But then I also find that we often have to kind of hit time out and reset and say, hold on, we're starting to spend out of convenience now, right? Why are we spending out of convenience? It's because we're not planning. We're in a hurry. We don't have a choice. You got to stop it at the gas station to get a convenience thing you know what I mean? Yeah. And when you stop at the convenience store for gas, you paid a little bit more for gas, but then you went inside and you spent $20 on what? How much protein and sustenance did you actually get, right?
I try to tell people the easiest way to spend money, and the way a lot of people get into trouble, is using their cards, their credit cards, or even their debit card, because there's no feel to it. There's no emotional attachment to it. But if you have to whip out a Ben Franklin and say goodbye to that, that's a little more difficult. Now, so sometimes I advise clients to use cash and stop using your credit card, because it's so easy to get yourself in a hole that way. And then you see this statement, it just has in big bold letters, minimum payment. And that they fall into that trap of just, I'll pay the minimum. That way I can keep spending. So again, they never sacrifice. They never look at the big picture. They owe their whole life to the credit card company or the bank or the finance company that paid for their car or their house. I mean, they don't own any of these assets. They think they do, but the bank and credit card companies own them.
Right.
You're just borrowing, you're paying them. So you're going to pay 18 to 22% interest. You're doing a terrible job.
Jeez.
You're doing a terrible job of managing your money if you're running your credit card to running your life. So it's brutal, and I hate to be direct, but that's one of the worst. That's one of the worst things I see people make, that decision of having to buy and using their credit card to finance their lifestyle. And so I tell them, get away from that. Use cash if you have to. When you're in trouble and you're going in a hole, first thing you got to do is put the shovel down.
Stop digging.
Because you're digging yourself deeper and deeper. Yeah. And that's a key. But, again, turn it into your advantage. Instead of the credit card company making the money, you make the money. You start investing and you make the money on your money. And then you're power. You've got the power.
Yeah, and that's when you have the power, that's when you can find freedom, right?
The whole thing comes together for you. So many more opportunities. Not only, just even your career. When you're financially capable of doing things, doors open up. You can explore other avenues if you want to in your career. You can try new things. You can live in a nicer home. You can have a nicer vehicle, which I would say all people want. And it's not that hard to get if you're willing to sacrifice a little bit early on. And look, I know how hard it is, because I have 5 children, and I have a couple of them who have that tendency to want now.
Sure.
And they don't know how to stop. Like, look at the long term, look at down the road. You have to live beneath your means if you want to succeed with wealth. And then it's amazing, but if you're willing to do that and live as if you don't have any money for a while, you'll be so wealthy you won't even know what to do with it later. And that's what I'm talking about. Then you can give it away. You can do all sorts of things with your wealth.
So you said 2 things. You said it's easy, but then you said it's not easy. to me, it's easy in the sense that we know what we need to do, but doing it's actually hard, right? But it's also one of those things, like when I talk to my daughters about, they're very talented kids. They get their mom's athleticism and they got their mom's intelligence, right?
Humble.
Right. But but when we talk about mindset, it's like, anybody can have a strong mind. Any one of us we can have that if we choose and want that for ourselves, but not just anybody can have talent or specific, you know what I mean? But in this case, anybody has the ability to have the mindset to sacrifice and to find a way to save, right?
I love the whole thing about finding who you are and going after your dreams and achieving. But also there's that pressure. Athletes, professional athletes, you were there. You understand the pressure that's put on you.
Quite professional.
You were just under it.
I did the NFL workout just to say I did it. Sure. And I was like, all right, peace, fellas.
You know what pressure was like in college to perform. And I think that people need to really get comfortable with.
Water all over myself.
Careful with that coffee or water.
It's my left hand. I'm that much athletic. I'm that athletic, right?
Get comfortable with the pressure that they have. There was a documentary about the Boston Red Sox. It was on Netflix. I don't know if you watched that, but there's a player on the Boston Red Sox named Jarren Duran, and he's a really good player, really good hitter, but struggled with the pressures and mentally didn't know how to handle it because fans, if you're not performing every single day, getting a hit every at bat, they're booing you. You suck. You're terrible. He couldn't deal with that, and on the show he talked about sitting at home one day in his room, loading a shotgun and pulling the trigger. And it clicked. And he said, maybe I'm supposed to be here for a reason. And he shared that with the Netflix people, and they put it on the show, and they've had literally tens of thousands of people reach out and say that has helped me so much. So again, going back to that whole concept of sacrifice, perform, but knowing that you are okay in failure and just let yourself be who you are. You don't have to be perfect. You don't have to be perfect all the time. Yeah.
I had a guest on the show, Isaiah Salazar, a good friend of mine, runs a number of small businesses here in Ogden. And he advocated, he said, don't have a plan B. Have a plan A. Have consequences if it doesn't work, and you'll be surprised at what comes out of you.
Yeah.
When you are in that position where you have no choice but to succeed, and there are other people, your family, your kids, counting on you to succeed so you can feed them, he goes, you'll be shocked at what you're capable of when you're in that situation.
I love that.
Right? Don't have a plan B.
If you have plan B, I think you have a tendency to cop out.
That's what he said. He's like,
you're going to, maybe I'll just
kind of
throw in the cards. When I started in the financial services industry, the branch manager, he liked that I had the network, the connections with ultra wealthy horse racing people. And he thought, this kid might have an ability to bring in clients to the firm. Mm-hmm. And he said, all right, you're just like every other advisor now. You're starting at the bottom. So I went from making good money, top of my game as a jockey, to right down here to nobody, and taking a small salary, hoping that I would build it up over time with revenue brought in from advising clients' assets. And they told all of our first-year advisors, you have to bring in $6 million in new assets, client assets to manage within 12 months. If you don't do that, you're fired. You're gone. And so the attrition rate, the turnover rate for a financial advisor working, back then it was kind of literally Wall Street. You're a broker, you're a stockbroker. I hate that term because I don't like to be thought of as a salesperson, selling stuff. I don't sell anything, but that's how we were viewed back then in those days. So imagine if I had a plan B, I'm in there at $6 million. I'm struggling to bring in this much money in assets, like for managing money. I'll have to find something else. But I didn't ever think about failure. There is no option for failure. I'm going to do this. As a matter of fact, I brought in $12 million the first year. And then from then, it just kept going because I didn't quit and I didn't ever think about what if I don't make it. I was just, I'm going to make it. Throw me overboard. I'm swimming and I can't sink.
You don't have a choice, right?
Yeah.
I got a friend that right now he's got a dream and he's dabbling in it right now. And then he's got a job that's safe and stable and secure that he's staying at, and even though he doesn't want to. And he asked me, well, I was listening to him and another friend of mine talk about it. And he said, what do you think I should do, Ben? And I said, I think you should quit the job that you don't like and do what you want to do. And he's like, well, I need that for insurance. I need it for my stability or whatever. And I remembered what Isaiah said about, don't have a plan B. I'm like, your plan B is keeping you soft. It's keeping you from really going all in on your plan A, you know?
Yeah.
So the next time I saw him, like 2 weeks later, I'm like, so did you make a decision? And he's like, yep. And he told me the date. And so I put it in my phone as Freedom Day. And I set a reminder to call him to make sure that he pulled the trigger. So
accountability right there.
It is. And sometimes when you vocalize your goals, you don't have a choice anymore, right? And,
I love that.
I had really good friends, 2 really close friends, dear friends of mine. I love them to death. They're my best friends. Like, men need to be around men they admire, right? And want to be more like. And I've told the story a number of times, but they like shook me and said, you have to run for mayor. We know you want to. We know you'd be good at it. And we are tired of watching you be less than who we know you are. We're tired of watching you believe the naysayers that are accusing you of this, that, and the other. You're buying into it, and that's not who you are, right? I was being weak. I was believing them instead of believing me. And I was really glad that, and I told him, I'm like, fine. I mean, I was like a yelling match with my close friends. The people closest to you that love you the most tell you the truth, especially when it hurts. And I said, fine, but tomorrow we're announcing and telling people. And we're going to tell enough people that we can't take it back, right? Because I'm not going to live my life wondering. I'm not going to live my life with regret. We're going to go all in. We're going to do it. Wherever it goes is where it goes, but we're not going to do it without giving it everything we have.
I think that kind of, when you put it out there to the universe, even yourself, your subconscious mind hears it and starts to believe it.
Right.
If you keep reiterating that enough times. So
there's something to that, right?
Huge thing.
There's power in that. To propel you with that power.
Jim Carrey, the quick story about him, it's before he was Jim Carrey, he was just a nobody. He was struggling to try to find any movie. And he wrote a check to himself one day for $10 million. Signed it for acting services rendered. And he carried that check around in his wallet and pull it out all the time and look at it. And he carried it around for years. Like 3 years later. Gets the lead role for Dumb and Dumber for $10 million. I mean, the power of the universe, the law of attraction, just bringing things to you if you believe in it enough, I think is very underappreciated.
Right. And I know there's people watching saying, oh, there's lots of people here in Ogden that life is much harder than that. They don't have the
opportunities.
They don't have the opportunity to think like that. They don't have the privilege that you've had, Ben. They don't have the privilege you've had, Billy, to, and to some degree that might be true. That's probably true. There's always somebody out there that's got it worse than I do. That's for sure. But we all have the ability to be better, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I firmly believe, Billy, that we as a community and as a country will be great when we make and help each other, make ourselves great, and make those around us be great.
Yeah.
Right? The better we are, the better those around us are. Instead of having that negative energy that's twice as infectious, be that positive energy that takes twice as much effort, right? At least twice as much effort to create.
Yep.
Versus the negative. When you read the paper and you see all the negative stuff, be the person that's strong enough to translate it back into positive.
Something
right?
good.
Don't take that energy when you watch the news and read the online crap in the comments and then believe it's actually true just because somebody said it, right? And then translate negativity back out into the world.
That's becoming more the norm.
Oh, it's totally the
People love
norm.
to get on and just tear people apart on social media.
Yeah.
I don't know what it does. It feeds people's egos or what, but that's what we really need to try to put an end to. And we can each do that ourselves by starting with ourselves.
Right.
Find something positive to comment. Throw something good out into the world.
Right.
And see what
add
happens.
value.
Yeah.
Don't take value, add value.
Yeah.
It's amazing when you add value, how much value you get.
Yeah.
By adding, it's just, I don't know. It's like this mindset, and I can't do it for people. I can only be my best and try and do my best. I make mistakes constantly, but like while we're sitting here right now, there's people on their keyboards hammering on me right now.
Yeah.
Like literally today, in this moment, there are people criticizing me
Yeah.
that don't have the understanding that I do, the information I do, the access to resources and information and expertise that I do, and don't have the big picture global view that I have to have for everybody in this city, right? Doesn't matter. Hammer on him.
It's small-minded thinking, and people who've never been in a position like you're in, who don't really get it. Decisions have to be made. You know, it's unfortunate that people think you should be able to give everybody what they want, everything. You know, unlimited money, unlimited supplies, unlimited resources, and it's just not the way it works.
No, I'd have to take it from somebody to give it to others.
Yeah,
it doesn't make itself, you know.
And we're going right back to the whole thing about taking care of yourself.
Right.
How about you start taking care of yourself?
It starts with you, ends with us. That's what I say about the Ogden Way. It starts with accountability for yourself. And then when you are in a place where you have something to give, you can't give that which you do not have. But if you have that energy to give, you have the ability to help and lift others, then it's
a
us.
collective effort.
But
And
it
then
starts with
there's
you,
more.
ends with us, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not sharing what people on the keyboards right now are saying and doing because I'm a victim. I'm not. They're actually the victim. They're the ones that are actually being hurt and hurting themselves by perpetuating that energy and the negativity, and right. And some of them just have a strong opinion and are well informed, and that's called a disagreement. That happens, right? But draw a line and a distinction when you're in life to recognize when you have a disagreement on something versus me versus you, good versus evil, us, them, tribalism.
When it becomes hate.
Left, right.
And
yes.
threats.
It's hate, right? And that's, the world is perpetuating it. People are profiting on it. And we're all hurting because of it, right? Mm-hmm. And I would never advocate covering up our, the things that we need to do better. But holy cow, can we do better in that way?
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Well, you're a good man to just bring it to the table, bring these kind of conversations to the surface, and so people can hear it. You know, you're a real person. It's not like you're just sitting here writing forms out all day and signing forms. You're trying to do a good job.
We're working, right?
Yeah.
And I will say, I love it, and I'm happy to do it. I'm blessed to get to do it. The pressures, the privilege, the job is the best job I've ever had. It's also the hardest job I've ever had. And I think that mindset's important because I want people around me to have that mindset too. This city of people we have so much greatness within us here. We really do. Mm-hmm. And we have the grit and the determination and the drive to be even better. Right?
The Power of Positive Thinking.
Yep.
One of the best books ever written, by the way.
Superintendent Luke Rasmussen said, Ogden is a gem. And I said, let's help Ogden shine even brighter.
Yeah.
Right? As a gem. Well, I really have enjoyed hearing your story, Billy. And I know that's just touching on your story.
Yeah.
Right?
Appreciate it.
But in order to harness your wealth, you have to harness your own greatness. Right? You have to step into your greatness, be your best self, take accountability, sacrifice now. Right?
Well said.
Have less so that later you can have more. That's the lesson, right?
That's beautiful. Yep. That's it. That's really the summation of all of it, you know, from the wealth to everything you're talking about, you know, harnessing your wealth. In my new book, From the Starting Gate, I talk all about that. Wealth, health, and happiness.
Wealth, health, and happiness. Is it in that order or is it?
It is in that order.
Okay.
Because that's the way I kind of thought about it in my life. I didn't realize that health, if you don't have your health, you don't have anything. Right? The health is the most important. But you can start out at an early age because most young kids, teenagers, are in pretty good health. Now, they could probably do better as far as how they eat and physical activity, but they can start becoming independently wealthy at an early age. Not that they're going to be wealthy for a while, but if they start, they have the power of time. The time is so critical. And if they just get started, let it go, watch it grow, and sacrifice some today for down the road tomorrow, which is years down the road I'm talking about. But be willing to see that, and you will be amazed. And I hope people are watching this, and someday they'll look back on hearing these words and say, man, that made a difference. That made all the difference.
Be willing to see that so that one day you can be that. Every episode we end with a call to action, Billy. So today I'm going to say that your call to action is let it go so that you can grow. Be the kind of person that puts value back into the world. Be the kind of person that can translate negative energy into positive, who completely rebuffs the negative and always looks within and brings positive energy to the things that you're doing. That doesn't mean that you're ignoring or denying the fact that circumstances before us are not good. They're not good enough. There's always room for improvement, but you can't improve those things by yelling and bringing negativity to the thing. We have to bring positive energy to build positive things, right? Be that kind of a person, and you'll be surprised what you're able to become and achieve.
Drop the victim card, take some accountability, and be the person that you want to be.
That's right. The Ogden Way starts with you, ends with us. Thanks for being here with us today. You've been here with Billy Peterson of Morgan County.
Yep.
Proof, if you sit and you talk to people, there's good people in Morgan, right? Good people in Morgan County.
We're giving Morgan a good name, hopefully, today.
Exactly. For all you people in Morgan, hopefully you see in me and see in us that there's good people in Ogden too. Even though we have a sports rivalry, we often butt heads. Doesn't mean we're bad people to our core. Take time, listen to each other. You'll be surprised what you learn and who you meet, and who knows, maybe even what you can earn, right? All right. Sure. Billy Peterson, thanks again for being with us.
Thank you, Ben.
Always appreciate my time. Thanks for being with us, everybody who listened and watched. This is the Ogden Way Podcast. I'm Ogden Mayor Ben Nadolski saying peace.